Nicole Wischoff from Wischoff Ventures
Yeah.
posted some very interesting data over on the Twitters, and Gary Tan did respond, so we have quite a lot to discuss here, Jason. But here is the data she put out. She grabbed some data from the Y Combinator Spring 2025 batch, and then she looked at a number of non-YC pre- and seed companies from around the same era, and she found that from the YC cohort, the average round size, 3 million, average cap on their safe notes was about 25 million, and their average ARR just over 100K. For non-YC pre-seed and seed companies at around the same time, average round size, 2.4 million, smaller, average valuation cap on their safe, 15 million, much lower, and their average ARR was 290,000, much more. There's a lot of nuance to this data, Jason, but did any of that surprise you when you saw it?
No, not at all. What Y Combinator has done is what Harvard has done. They've created an incredible brand that people are willing to pay for value or perceived value. You can make a big debate there. This data, of course, is probably trends. It follows the absolute trend I see, which is non-YC companies with traction versus YC companies with traction. You're going to get essentially here half the price for triple the performance, which is 6x leverage. But let's just call it 5x leverage on every dollar invested. This is why a lot of folks have opted out of the YC game, because there are a lot of dentists and a lot of folks coming to Y Combinator demo day who are, maybe not as entry price discerning. And the majority of unicorns in Silicon Valley did not go to Y Combinator. They didn't get backed by Sequoia, and they didn't get backed by me. That's just the nature of how big our market is. So and I would say a percentage of Y Combinator companies I know historically don't clear market. So they try for 25 million on the valuation cap, but Nicole might never meet them because they give up trying to raise money, or they raise a small amount at a smaller valuation, and they don't make their way to the seed funds. In other words, this data is kind of skimming the cream of two different groups, I think. So let's put that in there. Yeah.
Just like the Andreessen data we were just discussing,
Correct.
We're talking about companies that Andreessen cared about or invested in. So we're already looking at a pretty
Top
rarefied
10%.
circle.
Yeah. So I think, and if Y Combinator accepts 1% of startups and companies that get to 25K a month in revenue, I would say, in the non-YC pre-seed and seed co's, that would equal 1% of startups that were formed, in the United States. So this data is about the 1% of startups in the seed ecosystem. And it is correct. You will pay 5x net on the valuation to the ARR performance. Now, but, listen, there's Airbnb went to Y Combinator. So people are hoping of the 500 companies, or I'm not sure how many they're doing a year now. Maybe
their cohorts have gotten smaller again.
So, okay. So there's 3 cohorts now instead of 2, I think. And I think they're doing 250 per or 200 per. So if they're doing 250 per and they're doing 3, that's 750. So it was at 500. It would be good to know that number, because for Y Combinator or Techstars or us, we're doing a large amount of bets, knowing that our pull-through rate is going to be 50%, 60%, 70%. I bet, of YC companies, maybe 60%, 70% actually wind up raising a round. That statistic is the one you really need to look at. What this means is if you get accepted to Y Combinator, go. If you get accepted to Launch, go. If you get accepted to Foundry University, go. Antler, Techstars. I don't know the other top accelerators out there. I suppose it's probably a steep drop off from there. But if you can get into one of these programs, they act as a filtering mechanism for people like Nicole. People like Nicole do not have a big enough staff to sort through the 20,000 applications we get, the 50,000 that Y Combinator gets, the 40,000 that Techstar gets, Antler probably gets 40,000 or 30,000. It's just too much work to get through all those. So what you're looking for as a seed manager or a pre-seed fund is for somebody to just weed out people who can't show up for 12 weeks in a row to an accelerator and have 3 co-founders, one of which is a developer submitting code who owns over 10% of the equity on the cap table. That's what we do at our accelerator or at Foundry University or YC or Techstars. That's what we all do.